in till 30th November 2020. So only when that tax audit report is over, you will get the audited closing balance, which will be converted into audited opening balances of the financial year 1920. So if that date is 30th November 2020, how can you tell the tax auditor to complete the tax audit of financial year 1920 before that date, when that event has not occurred? This is number one. And number two is, as I said earlier also, that the normal practice is that for corporates, since they have extended the due dates till 31st of December, it is likely that accounts will, more time is required to prepare the accounts. And if accounts are not prepared, then audit under the Companies Act as well as audit under tax audit cannot take place. So obviously, we are looking for a substantial extension of at least 2 months. I think is the minimum that we can expect, provided it does not go on even further. In fact, the institute has already written a representation letter to the ministry seeking for extension of TAR, tax audit report, till 28th of February 21, and the subsequent filing 1 month later than that is 31st March 21. But let us see what happens. But at least as things stand today, we can expect an extension of TAR till 31st December and the return till 31st of January. That looks very natural and very practical also. But so far, no such notification has come from the ministry. But and many other associations have also written for TAR extension. And let us hope that it will be released by the ministry as possible. So with these good program through VCM, after the outbreak of the pandemic, this is the 4th program. In July, we had one program on VCM, one in August, one in September, and now the 4th one in October. It is expected that from November onwards, the institute will increase the quota of VCM for members, because it is unlikely that we can have physical meets in November. But if the situation improves, then in December, January, we can have small to medium-sized physical meetings. And obviously, our study circle will be organizing such meetings in December and January. So with these introductory remarks, I request if the convener has come to say a few words. If he is not there, if he has not joined as of now, then we can directly request CA Manoj Tiwari to start his screen sharing and take us through to the 3 most important topics, the 3 most burning topics which are relevant today. So over to Suman. If you can see Shantanu, kindly tell him to join for a minute or so, and then it will be over to Manoj. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sumantada. Till now, I cannot see Shantanu has not yet joined. So
let Manoj.
I think Manoj can start with you.
Yes.
Manoj, are you there? Manoj, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Manoj.
Good evening, friends.
Good evening.
Sumantada, the President, Suman Chaudhary, and all the participants to the seminar. The topic is very innocuous and very simple rather. Only point is the mistakes which we are committing. Very few of us normally are committing mistakes in 3CD. I'll be trying my level best to highlight those mistakes so that even if 1% of us are committing that mistake, that can be rectified. And in the second part of my deliberation, I'll be talking about 194O TDS provision, and 206 1G and 1H TCS provision. So only 4 topics. So I'm starting with tax audit first. Yes, my friends, as we all know, there are basically regarding tax audits, basic things is 5 clauses in section 44 AB. First clause A is talking about if my turnover or gross receipt exceed 1 crore or 5 crore subject to fulfillment of certain conditions, then tax audit is mandatory. If my professional income exceeds 50 lakhs, tax audit is mandatory under clause B. Under clause C, if I'm supposed to offer my income under 44 AE or 44 BB or 44 triple B, but I'm offering lesser income then as is stipulated under 44 AE, 44 BB or 44 triple B, and my income is higher, my income which I'm offering is lesser than deemed profit, then clause C, I have to do tax audit under clause C. Under clause D, it will be when provisions of subsection 4, sorry, when I'm in profession, when in profession and my professional income is less than 50 lakhs, but I'm not offering my income under 44 ADA. Means I'm not offering 50% or more than that of my professional income as deemed profit. I'm showing my profit because my actual profit is less than 50% of my gross receipt and my total income is greater than amount not chargeable to tax, maximum amount not chargeable to tax, then clause D. Clause D will apply when I had opted for tax audit, I had offered my income under 44 AD in earlier previous years, but this year I have opted out of 44 AD, then it is mandatory that I have to go for tax audit. These are the 5 clauses under which tax audit has to be carried on. And there is one more clause, my friend, third proviso to 44 AB, which says that if your audit has been conducted under any other act, if your audit has been conducted under any other act, maybe Companies Act, maybe LLP Act, then it will be sufficient compliance if you furnish an audit report under 3CA and an annexure will be 3CD. So basically 6 provisions are there under which tax audit can be carried on. Rule 6B prescribes the forms. Rule 6D prescribes the forms. Forms are 3CA and 3CB. Friends, here it is very important to understand when do I furnish Form 3CA and when do I furnish Form 3CB, my audit report in Form 3CA or 3CB. Generally, it is known that if my audits have already been conducted under any other law, then I have to furnish my tax audit report in Form 3CA. But so people say for companies Form 3CA and for LLPs Form 3CA and for others Form 3CB. Now friends, I'll give you one example to understand. Even in case of company, you have to furnish the audit report in Form 3CB. Let's take a simple case. A company was incorporated on 15th February 2020. If a company was incorporated on 15th February 2020, as per Companies Act 2013, your accounts have to compulsorily close by 31st March 2021. You have to prepare annual accounts not for the year ending 31st March 2020. You cannot prepare annual accounts for this period, this 15th February to 31st March. That is, this year your accounts will not be prepared and audited under Companies Act. It will, your annual accounts will be from 15th Feb 2020 to 31st March 2021 under Companies Act. So now, since your accounts have not been audited under Companies Act for the financial year 1920, in this case, you have, even in case of company, you have to furnish audit report, tax audit report in Form 3CB. Point number one. Now, let's complicate it further. In the next year also, financial year 2021, you are auditing accounts of company for the period 15th Feb to 31st March 21. So you are preparing accounts for 13 and a half months, whereas in income tax, it should be 12 months or less in case of newly established business. So even next year, even for next year, two sets of accounts have to be prepared. One for 13 and a half months under Companies Act and another for 12 months under Income Tax Act. So even for next year, it will be Form 3CB, even in case of company. So please be very clear when Form 3CA or 3CB. Form 3CB is annexure. Form 3CD is annexure to 3CA or 3CB. 271B, if you must be knowing, my friends, that if accounts are not tax audited by, and then you have to furnish, you have to pay a penalty of 0.5%. Department may make you liable to pay imposed penalty of 0.5% of turnover, maximum amount to 1.5 lakh. As I told you, my friends, from financial year 1920, the turnover will, earlier it was that if your business turnover exceeds 1 crore, under clause A, you are supposed to go for tax audit. Now 1 crore will be 5 crore. Your means if your turnover is not exceeding 5 crore, you don't have to resort to tax audit, provided cash component in receipts and cash component in payments, aggregate of receipts and aggregate of payment. Cash component is up to 5%. Cash component in aggregate receipt is less than 5%. Cash component in aggregate payment is less than 5%. Aggregate receipt means your turnover, partner introduction, loan. Whatever is the receipt, cash receipt, whatever is the receipt, cash and bank receipt taken together, aggregate of receipts, aggregate of payment. So this is one thing. So as I told you, friends, for tax audit under section 44 AB, it can be done either under Form 3CB or Form 3CA. If you are auditing under Form 3CA, you are issuing audit report under Form 3CA. It has to be under third proviso to section 44 AB. And if you are preparing, if you are furnishing audit report in Form 3CB, it will be under the clauses A to E of section 44 AB. Form 3CA, total 3 paras. Examination of books by auditor included before giving opinion. Now, friends, here any observation with regard to Form 3CD has to be furnished in para 3. What is the basic difference in Form 3CA and 3CD? Friends, when you are issuing tax audit report in Form 3CA, it is implied that accounts have already been audited entity accounts have already been audited, assessee accounts have already been audited under any other law. Means there is independent audit report in regard to assessee under any other law. What you are doing now, you are preparing a tax audit report in Form 3CA. But while yes, it has to be signed by a person who is authorized under Section 288. But when you are issuing audit report under Form 3CB, then accounts have not been audited under any other law. Here you have to audit accounts when you are issuing report under Form 3CB. You have to audit accounts and also furnish report. So basically there are two audits. One with regard to accounts of the company, another with regard to 3CD. 3CD, it is true and correct when you are, like, mind you, Form 3CB, 3CD you are auditing, it is true and correct. And when you are giving your opinion about an accounts, financial accounts, it is true and fair. So basically 5 paras. In para 3A, you furnish your observations, qualifications, comment regarding accounts. If accounting standards have not been followed, if accounting standard 10 or accounting standard 18 or accounting standard 22 have not been followed, those observations have to be given in para 3A with regard to financial statement. And if there is any observation, qualification with regard to Form 3CD, with regard to clauses of Form 3CD, then it will be, your observation should be given in para 5. Is SA 700 applicable? Friends, standard on auditing para 700 is applicable to any auditing, any audit report you issue. Auditing standards, standards on auditing are applicable in case of any audit. If you are auditing housing society, then also audit report should be as per SA 700. If you are auditing a company, then also audit report will be as per 700, SA 700. If you are auditing a proprietary organization, then also audit report should be as per SA 700. If you are if you are auditing a joint venture, then also audit report should be as per 700, SA 700, and SA 700 is mandatory. Please understand, my friends, that SA 700 is mandatory. It will apply to all entities audited. If you are issuing audit report, it has to be as per SA 700. Friends, now let's understand that what are the clauses where there are errors. In clause 8. Clause 8 it talks about indicate the relevant clause of section 44AB under which audit has been conducted. Now, friends, there are, as I told you, 5 clauses and third proviso. So, if you have conducted your audit, then third proviso to, if you are auditing a company, then third proviso to section 44AB, where such person is required by or under any other law to get his accounts audited. It shall be sufficient compliance with the provisions of the Act if Form 3CD is furnished along with Form 3CA. So, when you are auditing an entity whose accounts have been audited under any other law, then third proviso, you have to audit it under third proviso. Please remember, you have to understand. So it has been observed that in case of companies also, some auditors have opted 44AB clauses. It cannot be under clause A because company accounts have been audited under any other law. So it has to be third proviso to section 44AB. So this is one mistake. This is one mistake. 700 applicable, SA 700 applicable for tax audit? Yes, it is applicable for tax audit. Every audit, as I told you, my friends, it is applicable. Now regarding Form 3CA and Form 3CB, qualification para. Qualification has to be specifically given in para 3 and or para 5. It cannot be given as notes to account. Friends, one more point, very pertinent point. Your Form 3CA or Form 3CB should contain para 3. In para 3 of 3CB, these points should appear. In para 3 of 3CB, audit report issued under Form 3CB, these points, assessee responsibility for the financial statement and statement of particulars in Form 3CB. This should appear in para 3 to 3CB. Because here you are also auditing accounts. Because in the case you are issuing audit report in Form 3CB, accounts have not been audited under any other law. So in para 3, these points should be there. I'll share my PPT with the study circle so that later on you can see these points. This is what should be there in para 3 to 3CB. This point, the assessee is responsible for preparation of statement of particulars required to be furnished under section 44AB. This para 5 should appear in para 5 of 3CB and para 3 of 3CA, because tax audit has not been conducted under any other law. Tax audit is being conducted. Tax audit is being conducted under Income Tax Act. So since tax audit is being conducted under Income Tax Act, in Form 3CA, when you are issuing audit report, in Form 3CA, this in para 3, these points should appear, and in Form 3CB, in para 5, these points should appear. It has to be, it is mandatory, my friends. Please make a note of it. It is mandatory. There is no excuse. You can't say that I forgot to add this. It has to be mandatorily mentioned. So these points should be there. Only observation and qualification should be given in para 3 and para 5. Because notes to accounts are issued by management. Notes to account are issued by management. It is not your prerogative. So whatever qualification, observation you have to give, you have to furnish that in Form 3CB or 3CA in the relevant para. One very important change in regarding UDIN. When you are issuing Form 3CA, there should be 2 UDIN. One for audit of financial statement and one for Form 3CA. But when you are issuing Form 3CB, when you are issuing Form 3CB, then there should be only one. There should be only one in form. When you are issuing it in Form 3CB, there should be only one UT. Please remember. Date of tax audit, date of filing. Friends, what happens? We upload, but client does not accept by due date. You have uploaded it, but client does not accept it by the due date. Date of acceptance of client should be considered as date of filing. Due date, tax audit date of filing will be date of acceptance by taxpayer. So please ensure that it is not only filed by you, it should also be accepted by the taxpayer by due date of filing of return. And mind you, from this year, you didn't not uploaded within 15 days, the form itself will become invalid. If UDIN is not uploaded within 15 days, the form itself will become invalid. Recent important issues regarding COVID, there is a moratorium. So even if it is due, it will be allowed. First point. In clause 8A, when you are opting for clause 8A, mind you, in clause 8A, they've given whether you are opting under for section 16BA, 115BAA, or 115BAB. That is 25%, 22%, and 15%. So friends, you have to fill up the forms 10IC, 10ID to opt for these. So please remember opting for these forms before furnishing of return. Before furnishing of return, we have to opt for these forms. Yes, yes. You have to opt for these forms. So before you furnish your return, do opt for, suppose you are opting for 115 BAA, means 22%. You are opting for 22%. But please remember, when you are opting for section 115 BAA, then any loss, business loss, ascertained business loss will not be allowed to be carried forward. It will lapse. So if you have ascertained business losses brought forward from previous years, then you should wait till the time this loss is set up against business profit. And then you may opt for 115 BAA. Even MAT credit will not be allowed. So before opting for, please consider pros and cons and then opt for it. 18CA. These amendments were notified on 1st October. Still, utility has not come. Schema has not come. Friends, they have said that carried forward unabsorbed depreciation loss. Once you opt for section 115 BAA, that is tax rate of 22%, carried forward unabsorbed depreciation will no more be carried forward. Means it has to be set up. It has to be added back. It has to be adjusted to written down value of asset. It has to be added back to written down value of asset, because this depreciation was unabsorbed till now. Since it will no more be set up, it will be added back to WDV. But utility has not come. Similarly, in clause 32A, they have made one adjustment. carry forward business losses. Once you opt for section 115 BAA, then carry forward losses will no more like brought forward loss from earlier years will not be carried forward to the next year. It will lapse in this year. So please beware. Another like error we commit. Tax audit report, you may find that address mentioned in Form 3CA or 3CB is different from address mentioned in audit report or as registered under MCA. Please ensure that same address is given. When you are giving the address, please ensure, our guidance note also prescribes that address should be same. Then, nature of business or profession. Friends, suppose there are three businesses, three main activities. So code of business or profession of all main activities have to be given. It has been observed by the institute, ICAI, that all activities are not being reported. Codes of all business activities are not being reported by the chartered accountant. Clause 11A, this is one major mistake. What happens, friends? We all know that books have been specified for professions. For 7 specified types of profession, books have been prescribed under section 44AA. But no books have been prescribed, in section 44AA for businesses. Even Company Act does not prescribe books. So when they ask under clause 13 or clause 11A, tax audit report, we should say no, books have not been prescribed, but it is normally seen that it has been reported as yes. 11B, list of books of accounts maintained and address at which books of accounts are being kept. Location of books has not been specified in certain tax audit report. So you have to mention where the books of accounts are kept, what is the location, address of the location. And fact that books of accounting are mentioned in computer system was not mentioned in some cases. So place of maintenance of books of account, there is a problem. Now you have to mention, as we all know, that all the relevant documents examined are not mentioned. We may have examined, but it should be reported also. Like we may have examined invoices, we may have examined receipts, we may have examined vouchers, we may have examined bills, secretarial documents, confirmation, certificates. We may have examined, but we have not mentioned. So we have to mention it also that these documents were examined by us. So reference to all such documents has to be given. 13D, 13E, 13F. 13D, E, F. This is green. Suman?
क्लीन आउट हो गया, क्लीन आउट हो गया, मेल में जाकर वापस ज्वाइन करा.
Was there any problem?
Yes, I got it back. There was, I could not see the screen.
Now you can.
Yes, it's back. It's back. Yes. I was amazed. I was not getting my screen. Technology. Yes. The discrepancy regarding address, books, yes, 13D. Whether any adjustment is required to be made to profit and loss account for complying with ICDS. Friends, we must be knowing that there are 10 ICDS. So all 10 may have impact on your profit or loss. So in 13E, we have to give the impact of those adjustments. Now, only two ICDs you have seen are giving impact, are having impact quantum, suppose 5,000, 7,000. So for others, we are leaving the screen blank. But you cannot keep it blank. You say ICDS 3 nil, ICDS 4 nil, ICDS 5 nil or 0 should be mentioned. We should not keep it blank. Regarding disclosures under 13F, all significant accounting policies should be given. So all disclosures, mind you, ICDS 6 and ICDS 8, ICDS 6 foreign exchange, ICDS 8 security does not require any disclosure, but other ICDS may have certain disclosures. So those disclosures should be mentioned. Friends, another one, method of valuation of closing stock employed in the previous year. Friends, you must be knowing that closing stock will contain raw material, work in process, finished goods. So method of valuation has not been mentioned for each item of stock. You have to mention method of valuation for each item of stock. So it has to be very clear. In case of deviation from method prescribed under 145A. Say, friends, section 145A prescribes inclusive method. Even guidance note prescribes inclusive method. Tax audit guidelines prescribes inclusive method. Accounting standards prescribe inclusive method. So if you have done any item under exclusive method, then impact of that on account has to be given. Because inclusive item is there, inclusive method is there, it is in existence for so many years together. So it was observed that deviations remain to be reported while following exclusive method in certain cases. Although exclusive method of valuation have been followed, but deviation have not been mentioned from inclusive method. So that deviation has to be given. Clause 18, particulars of depreciation. Addition, deletion in tax audit report and addition, deletion as per audited financial statement are not in line, not same. Please ensure that whatever deletion, addition is there in audited financial statement, same is there in your tax audit report. It has to be same, my friends. It can't be otherwise. If there is addition, date put to use must be given. Date put to use must be given. If there is exchange fluctuation difference, adjustment account of exchange fluctuation, it got to be given. It has to be given in TAR uploaded also. If there is addition, date of addition of asset, normally what is happening, amount inadmissible, 40AIA or 40AI. Friends, you must be knowing that even for creditors, if the amount is credited to an account, whether you credit or pay, whichever is earlier, date of credit to the sundry account or date of payment, whichever is earlier, is the due date for tax deduction. Now, if tax has not been deducted, then 40AI will apply. So for sundry item of expenses where tax has where no payment has been made because it is part of sundry creditor, then date has not been given. Friends, the entry date should be given. Normally people have mentioned 11, 11, 11, 11. This will not do. Random dating will not do. If you have passed an entry, date of entry is the date. When you created that entry in your books, that is the date. Please mention that. There is no point in giving a random date. (40A3). Friends, I understand it is difficult from books of accounts to understand that accounts were payments were made by account pay check or account pay bank draft or TCS. So you furnish details. Now, sometimes you are reporting it on the basis of certificate procured from assessee. So mention that we have taken management representation letter where assessee has certified that there was no payment made exceeding 10,000 rupees in cash. All payments were made exceeding 10,000 rupees by account pay check, account pay draft, or ECS. So please mention that. There is no point. You are relying on certificate but not mentioning that in the 3CD. You have to mention. If you are not mentioning, it means that you have conducted audit in accordance with guidelines, meaning thereby if there is any default, you have to point it out. You are not pointing out default as well as not mentioning it in the audit report that you have relied on management representation letter, MRL of the assessee. If you are relying on certain MRL, please mention that management representation letter. Clause 22, amount of interest are inadmissible. You must be knowing that if there is delay in payment made to MSME, interest has to be paid. So that interest is mentioned in annual audit report, but not mentioned in tax audit report. If there is any interest which has been paid and mentioned in annual report, it is implied on you. It is legal liability to mention that interest amount which has been paid to MSME under tax audit report also. Particulars of payment made to related party. Friends, first of all, we need to understand what is related party. For a holding company, subsidiary is a related party. For subsidiary company, please understand, subsidiary company, holding company is related party. But for holding company, subsidiary is not related party. So if there is any payment, so first of all, we have to understand the way of relating. How it is related party, and name and PAN of all related persons to whom payments have been made. Revenue payments have been made, were not reported. You have to mention name and PAN of related person to whom payments have been made. 34A, whether the assessee is required to collect tax or deduct tax. So if you are required to collect or deduct tax, then you have to mention. You have to give detail of that. You have to furnish detail of that. Here, assessee is liable to pay interest. Date of payment of interest is not given under clause 34C. You have to mention the date, my friends. Our date has to be mentioned. Like ratios, suppose manufacturing organization. to percentage of yield. What is the percentage of yield in case of manufacturing organization? So percentage of yield has to be reported. Or if percentage of it could not be calculated, if percentage of yield could not be calculated, then it has to be reported that the percentage of it could not be calculated because there was no documentation made available by the assessee. So either you report percentage of yield or you put a qualification. It can't be left blank in clause 40. Details of turnover, gross profit. Suman, hello, hello,
হ্যালো
Suman,
হ্যালো শুভজি কুহ
সুমন ই
সুমন।
করো, সবাইকে মিউট করে দাও।
ଶୁଣ ପତଳା ପତଳା ଝୁଳ ଟିକେ ତଡକାର ହେଲା କଞ୍ଚା ଲଙ୍କା ରସୁଣ ଅଧିକା ଦେଇକି ଟମାଟୋ ଟେ ଦେଇକି ଟିକେ ବାଡେଇ ଦେଲ ଯାହା ମୁଁ ଖାଇବି ତ ଆଉ।
Hello. So details regarding, hello, Suman, am I audible? Details regarding turnover, gross profit for the previous year and preceding previous year. Friends, it is only applicable in case of manufacturing and trading companies. So in case of service entities, clause 40 is not applicable. In case of service entities, clause 40 is not applicable. So we can say that we do not have to calculate clause 40 for service entities. Wherever any clause is not applicable, you must write yes, no, or not applicable as it is required. So friends, first of all, my basic deliberation was concentrated to like what are the common errors. It took me around 45 minutes. Now friends, hello. Yes, my friends, now I do not have any presentation. I'll talk about section 194O, 206 1G and 206C 1H. So first of all, 194O. Friends, let's understand 194A. What is 194 capital O? Payment of certain sum by e-commerce operator to e-commerce participant. This is TDS provision. E-commerce operator, if e-commerce operator is facilitating business of e-commerce participant. Please understand, friends. If e-commerce operator is facilitating business of e-commerce participant, then while paying to e-commerce participant or crediting to them, whichever is earlier, the e-commerce operator will deduct 1%. E-commerce operator will deduct 1%. In case of any internet transaction, net transaction, website transaction, you see Flipkart, any website, we are making all purchases through website. Now what is happening? There is one person known as e-commerce participant, the vendor who is selling his goods. The vendor who is selling his goods or services, that is e-commerce participant. Who is e-commerce operator? The person who is operating digital electronic facility or platform. Then The e-commerce operator, while paying to e-commerce participant, will deduct 1% of the amount. Now, as we all know, either credit or payment, whichever is earlier. If you do not furnish your PAN, 5% will be deducted. If PAN is not furnished, 5% will be deducted. Now there is a subsection 2 which says that for individual and HUF, if payment is not exceeding 5 lakhs in a year, for individual and HUF, if payment is not exceeding 5 lakhs in a previous year, in a financial year, then no deduction will be made. So, my friends, it is very simple that e-commerce operator, e-commerce participant, individual and HUF, sale up to 5 lakhs, no TDS. They have also specified. Suppose a vendor is selling his goods. You make direct payment to vendor. The buyer is making directly payment to vendor. Now, how operator will deduct? How e-commerce operator? It is deemed that payment by buyer is also subject to TDS operation by e-commerce operator. (194) does not have much problem. There are two TCS problems. There are two TCS provisions introduced with effect from 1st October 2020, which are really posing problems. Number one is 206C 1G. They have introduced 4 subsections here. 206C was there since long ago. They have introduced subsection 1G, subsection 1H, subsection 1I, subsection 1J. 4 subsections have been introduced in TCS provision. Subsection 1G, clause A, what it says, every person being an authorized dealer who receives an amount for remittance out of India from a buyer, being a person remitting such amount out of India under the liberalized remittance scheme of Reserve Bank of India. I repeat, every person being an authorized dealer, even bank can be authorized dealer. Who is authorized dealer? Authorized dealer of foreign exchange. Authorized dealer of foreign exchange who receives an amount for remittance out of India from a buyer. Suppose you want to remit 10 lakhs rupees to UK, to your daughter. They say that if you remit beyond 7 lakhs, then authorized dealer will collect 5% of the amount remitted beyond 7 lakhs. Authorized dealer will collect 5% of the amount remitted beyond 7 lakhs. Now, let's take a case. Sumantruda is sending her daughter for higher education to UK. Now, the amount to be remitted every year is 60 lakhs. So 60 minus 3, 53 into 5%. This 5% will be collected by authorized dealer. 53 lakhs into 5%, 2,15,000. Is this amount income for Sumantruda? No. He will get benefit of this as he gets benefit of TDS. That is, it will be treated as advance payment. Why this 5%? To keep track of transits. Now they have said that if you have taken education loan and remitting the amount abroad, so in that case, deduction will be 0.5%. In case of education loan, suppose Sumantruda had taken the loan of entire 60 lakh. So 60 minus 7, 53 lakh into 0.5%. Only 26,500 will be deducted, will be collected by authorized dealer, which will be lying to the credit of Sumantruda. Clause B. Every person being a seller of an overseas tour program package. Every person being a seller of an overseas tour program package who receives any amount from a buyer, being the person who purchases such tour program package. In liberalized remittance scheme, remittance to abroad was taxable, TDS was collectible if amount remitted is beyond 7 lakh. Here there is no limit. Means if you remit 1 lakh, 5% of 1 lakh will be TCS collected. Being the person who will collect TCS, person who is selling overseas tour program package. Person who is selling overseas tour program package will collect 5%. The buyer will not include central government, state government, embassy, high commission, legation. So if any person is central government and remitting the amount, or state government is remitting the amount, or local authority is remitting the amount, the TCS will not be applicable. TCS provisions will not apply. If amount remitted is by central government, state government, this will apply to 206C1G. So exception, these buyers have been excluded. These buyers have been excluded from the definition of, so who will, if any TDS has been collected on the amount, if the amount is already subjected to TDS, then TCS will not be collected. If amount is subjected to TDS, then TCS will not be collected. This is also not a problem. Now I start with one of the most problematic sections introduced, and this is 206C1H. One of the most controversial sections of TCS. One of the most controversial sections. Please understand. 206C1H. First I read the section. I'll only speak for around 40 minutes on this, maximum, or 35 minutes. 206C1H starts with, every person being a seller, please understand, every person being a seller who receives any amount as consideration for sale of any goods of the value or aggregate of such value exceeding 50 lakhs rupees in any previous year. So every person being a seller who receives any amount as consideration for the sale of any goods. So every person means, as per section 2 clause 31, person has been defined. In section 2 clause 31, person has been defined, and person means individual, firm, HUF, company, trust, AOP, society, whatsoever. So every person being a seller. This is the definition of seller. Who receives any amount as consideration for the sale of any goods. For the sale of any goods. What does it mean? Definition of goods. For definition of goods, we have to resort to sale of goods act. We have to resort to definition of sale of goods act. Section 2, sale of goods act, section 2, clause 7. I'll discuss it at the relevant time. Of the value or aggregate of such value exceeding 50 lakh rupees in any previous year. This drafting is very confusing. Other than, now they have said, they have excluded certain categories. Other than goods being exported out of India, goods covered under subsection 1, subsection 1F, subsection 1G of section 206C. Subsection 1 talks about alcohol, 206C subsection 1 talks about alcohol, timber, tendulips, coal, etc. 261F talks about motor car, 261G we just discussed. Shall at the time of receipt of such amount. So every seller, when he will receive the amount, collect from the buyer a sum equal to 0.1% of sale consideration. 0.1%, 0.1% of the sale consideration exceeding 50 lakh rupees as income tax. So in sum and substance, let me explain this in simple words. If a seller is receiving more than 50 lakh in a financial year, if a seller is receiving more than 50 lakhs in a financial year from a buyer, then on amount exceeding 50 lakh rupees, the seller will collect 0.1%. When this section is applicable, from which date this section is applicable? 1st October 2020. Now there are certain questions. Question number 1. Whether date of sale is relevant? Whether date of sale is relevant? Friends, date of sale is irrelevant. Whether sale was made in 1718 or 1819 or 1920 is of no consideration. Whether you are receiving more than 50 lakhs in the financial year. Now, this is also conditional. Let me clarify. Sale can be in any financial year, even financial year 16-17 sale, financial year 17-18 sale, financial year 18-19 sale, financial year 19-20 sale, financial year 20-21 sale. What is of consequence over here? What is of consequence over here is whether you have received more than 50 lakhs during financial year 2021. Now, let's see. Suppose I have made a sale of 1 crore rupees in financial year 1920. In financial year 1920, I made a sale of 1 crore to Mr. X. Nothing was received in financial year 1920. In financial year 2021, I have received up to 30th September, I have received 80 lakhs. And after 30th September, on 10th October, I have received balance. That is up to 80 lakh, up to 30th September, I have received 80. And on 10th October, I have received 20 lakhs. So on amount received after 30th September. So how much I have received? 20 lakhs. Is it exceeding 50 lakhs during the financial year? Yes, because from 1st April to 30th September, I have received 80 lakhs. But on that, those 80 lakhs, I cannot collect TCS because this provision is applicable from 1st October. So from 1st October, if I have received more than 50 lakhs from a buyer during financial year, so during financial year, that is from 1st of April, I have received 80 plus 20, 100. How much do I collect? Up to 30th September, whatever I have received, I cannot collect anything. So after 30th September, I have collected 20. On 20, I have to collect 0.1%. How much it will be? 20 lakhs into 0.1% will be 2,000. 20 lakhs into 0.1%, 2,000 rupees. Now look at the problem. He has paid me 20 lakhs on 10th October. This provision was not there. So when I received the amount, I raised a debit note on him for 2,000 rupees. When this amount is payable by me, I have to pay this amount by 7th of November because TCS. This is when I receive the amount. Every person being a seller who receives any amount as consideration exceeding 50 lakhs rupees. Now, this 0.1% also is subject to a rebate this year. If you remember, 25% less. So now the rate is 0.075%. You must have seen they have introduced a section 206C subsection 10A capitally. There they have said that it will be 25% less. So 0.1 into 25% less. So it will be 0.075. So I'll raise a debit note of 1,500 rupees. Whether buyer pays me or not, whether buyer pays me or not, by 7th November, I have to pay it by 7th November to the General Exchequer by the challan. So this is owner's liability is on the seller. Every seller, every person being a seller, collect from the buyer, shall at the time of receipt of such amount collect from the buyer. So I have to collect, number one, seller has to collect and has to deposit by 7th of next month, irrespective of when it will receive from buyer. Now, any sale I am making after 1st October, suppose I am making a sale today, 20th October, should I debit buyer for TCS? If buyer is unknown person and I am selling it for 60 lakh rupees on 10 lakh, 0.1 is 1,000, 0.075, 750 rupees. So I should raise a debit note of 750 rupees. The moment I receive the money from the buyer, which one? Not TCS, amount received from buyer, irrespective whether buyer is paying me or not. If the moment buyer pays me the consideration, the moment buyer pays me consideration against sale, my liability to collect TCS arises, irrespective of whether buyer has paid me TCS amount or not. So this is one of the biggest issues, my friend. Now, they have defined buyer. Buyer has been defined. Buyer means a person who purchases any goods. Buyer means a person who purchases any goods but does not include. Same 261G, same exclusion. Central government, state government, embassy, high commission, legation, commission, consulate, local authority. I repeat, central government, state government, embassy, high commission, legation, commission, consulate, local authority. Local authority as defined in explanation in clause 20, section 10. There it is municipal corporation, municipality, panchayat. That's all. Municipal corporation, municipality, panchayat. That is local authority. So if I am making a sale to Calcutta University, Calcutta University, as we all know, is substantially financed by central government or state government. Its income is fully exempt under section 1023C. But since it has not been notified by CBDT, if I am making a sale of furniture, if I am selling furniture to Calcutta University for 1.5 crore, then I have to collect TCS from Calcutta University also. What Calcutta University will do? What Calcutta University will do? It will have to file return to claim TCS. So even exempt persons exempt under section 1023C or section 10, tribal, section 1026, section 10, clause 26, tribals are exempt. So if I have made a sale to a tribal, I have to collect TCS from him. But tribal may say, sir, my income is exempt, I do not file return. I see, I have no way out. Government has not notified you as exempt buyer. Since government has not notified you as exempt buyer, I have to collect TCS from you. Or you are making a sale to ONGC, or you are making a sale to Raja Bajar Science College, or you are making a sale to medical college. Medical college is not state government. Calcutta Medical College is not state government. Calcutta Medical College is not central government. So unless and until buyer is excluded and notified by the central government, even though its income is exempt, suppose I am making a sale to ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, it's not central government. Airport Authority of India is not central government. Ministry of Civil Aviation, central government. Ministry of Railways, central government. But Airport Authority of India is not central government. So if the buyer is not notified as exempted, if the buyer is not notified as exempted buyer, then we have to collect TCS from him. TCS will be on sale of goods only. TCS will be on sale of goods only. Now, who is a seller? Seller has been defined. Seller means whose total sales, gross receipt or turnover from business carried on by him exceed 10 crore rupees during financial year during financial year immediately preceding the financial year are immediately preceding the financial. So his gross receipt or total sales or turnover from business should exceed 10 crore rupees. There is a question, my friend. We are talking about 2021. So seller turnover or gross receipt has to exceed 10 crore. Whether this 10 crore will be inclusive of GST or exclusive of GST. Whether 10 crore of gross receipt or total sales or turnover from business. Mind you, it is not goods from the business. Sellers whose total sales, gross receipt or turnover from the business. They have not said goods. Means turnover from sale of goods from business. But what about GST? What about GST, my friends? Whether GST will be included in turnover? If you go through our institute guideline, tax audit guideline of the institute, which was last issued in 2014, it should be exclusive of GST. Earlier it was VAT. VAT was not included. VAT was not included in the gross receipt or turnover. But till it is notified, till it is clarified by the CBDT, it is better if we include GST and see whether turnover has exceeded 10 crore. Because if they later qualify, if they later notify that it will be inclusive of GST, then what will happen? And mind you, it should be sale of goods, sale of services, and or both. But TCS should be collected on sale of goods only. So previous year, when you are calculating previous year turnover, when you are calculating preceding year turnover, it should be sale of goods, sale of services, or both. But when you are talking about TCS collection from the buyer, it should be on sale of goods. And this sale of goods, this collection must be inclusive of GST. They have clarified that. If you look at press note, if you look at circular dated 29 September, circular number 17 dated 29 September, they have clarified that receipt will be inclusive of GST collection. Receipt will be inclusive of GST collection. In the press note, in the circular also, circular number 17, they have said 206C1H will not apply to transaction in securities and commodities. 261H will not apply to transaction in securities and commodities which are traded through recognized stock exchanges or cleared and settled by recognized clearing corporation. If you have done trade, if you are trading shares, securities and commodities through recognized stock exchanges or settled and cleared through recognized clearing corporation, then 261H will not apply. What does it mean? If these have been traded off market, if securities have been traded off market, 261H will apply. Because it is saying that if it is done through recognized stock exchange, 261C1H will not apply. Means if it is not done through recognized stock exchange, these will apply. Friends, as I told you, goods have been defined in section 2, subsection 7 of Sale of Goods Act. Goods mean every kind of movable property. Please understand the definition. Every kind of movable property other than actionable claims and money, including stocks and shares, growing crops, grass, and everything attached to or forming part of land. Transaction in electricity, renewable energy certificate done through a power exchange is not covered under 261. Meaning thereby, if distribution companies are getting power from generating company is selling power to distribution companies, power distribution companies, 261H will not apply. Means it will apply when distribution companies sell to end consumer. Suppose an industry, ITC Limited or Paharpur Towers, Paharpur Cooling Towers. If Paharpur Cooling Limited is paying to CESC bill of 1 crore 30 lakh rupees, then CESC is bound to collect TCS from Paharpur Cooling Limited on 130 minus 50 into 0.1%. So when power is being sold and consideration is received from end consumer by power distribution companies, then TCS is leviable. But if power is sold by generating companies to distribution companies or by power grid to distribution companies through power exchanges, this clause will not apply. Friends, I told you, you have to pay it by 7th. You have to also furnish the return within 15 days from the end of the quarter. Form is Form 27 EQ. They are also trying to change Form 27 EQ, opening balance of data, sales during the year, amount received from the data, and closing balance. If they make the change in Form 27 EQ, and for each buyer, you have to furnish the detail. What was the opening balance at the end of the year? What is the sale during the year? What is the amount received during the year? And what is the closing balance? The entire game is over. Now, there are few issues. Suman, hello. Suman. No issue. Receipt of consideration from buyer, whether including or excluding GST. It is always including GST. Receipt of consideration from buyer for sale of goods only. TCS will be collected on sale of goods only. Whether there will be TCS on inter-branch transfer of goods. This is $1 million question. Whether TCS will be applicable on inter-branch transfer of goods. What does an inter-branch transfer mean? Is it a sale? Inter-branch transfer is not a sale of goods. Since it is not a sale of goods, naturally TCS provisions will not apply. Whether TCS provisions will apply on job work or work contract. Job work or work contract is leviable to section 194C TDS provision. So since TDS provisions is applicable to job work or work contract, 206C1H will not apply. Whether this TCS will be applicable on sale of land, building, flats, sale of land, building or flat is not movable goods. It is immovable property. And since it is immovable property, TCS provision will not apply. Whether TCS provision will apply on sale of jewelry, definitely jewelry is goods and these provisions will apply. Whether TCS will apply on export of goods, naturally export of goods is out of the ambit of TCS provision. Whether TCS will apply on high seas sale. High seas sale means goods are imported into India and sold to another buyer. It is a deemed import. It is goods are being imported into India, and import into India is out of the ambit of TCS provision. TCS on TDR and leasehold rights, development rights, is immovable property, is in relation to immovable property. TCS provision will not apply. And very interesting feature. Suppose A has sold to B for 2 crore rupees. B has sold to A for 1.5 crore rupees. A has sold to B, B has sold to A. A has made a sale to B, B has made a sale to A. Whether TCS provisions will apply on net amount or on gross amount. In my humble opinion, it should be on 50 lakhs only. But Joint Secretary to TPL has opinion that it should be applicable on gross amount. Until and unless it is clarified, let's keep fingers crossed. It should be on net amount, but Joint Secretary has an opinion. I've heard him somewhere. He was saying it should be on gross amount. TCS on date written off. For writing off of dates, you are writing off them as bad dates. Do you receive anything? No, you do not receive any amount. So naturally, it will not apply. TCS on buyback of unlisted shares. TCS on buyback of unlisted shares. In case of buyback of shares, who buybacks the shares? Company. When company buys back the shares, company has to pay tax, additional income tax under section 115 QA. We all know. But will it absolve the company from the applicability of 261A? No. This will be applicable on buyback of unlisted shares. TCS on sale of goods to exempt persons, as I told you, friends, unless and until it is notified, nothing can be done. TCS on sale of motor car. Very interesting proposition. TCS provision under section 206C1F is applicable on sale of motor car from business to consumer, B2C. So B2B, Maruti Udyog to dealer, 1H will apply. Or suppose B2C, business to consumer, a company is purchasing cars costing 8 lakhs rupees and number is 10 cars costing 8 lakhs rupees each. So what is the total amount paid by company? 80 lakhs. What is the ceiling over here? 50 lakhs. 206C1F applies when car value, each motor vehicle value is more than 10 lakhs. But here, each motor car is costing 8 lakhs rupees. So 1F will not apply. Since 1F is not applying and consideration exceeds 50 lakhs, 1H will apply. Whether TCS will apply on slump sale, friends, whether TCS will apply on slump sale. What is slump sale? Slump sale is transfer of undertaking of a transfer of a business, transfer of a business per se. It's not transfer of goods. So in case of slump sale, naturally these 206 1H will not apply. Whether TCS will apply on bill discounting. What is bill discounting, friends? What is bill discount? A has sold to B goods costing 1 crore rupees. Now A is discounting the invoice with A banker. A has packing credit limit. Now it is discounting the bill. So discounting of bill means I am taking a loan from bank. Discounting of bill means I am taking money from bank as a loan, not from the buyer. There is no receipt from the buyer. I am receiving the money from the bank. Since I am receiving loan money from bank, I am not getting money from the buyer when I am discounting the bill. Naturally, bill discounting will not be subjected to TCS. Whether there will be TCS on factoring of bills. Factoring of bills. What is factoring, my friend? Suppose, same example, A has sold goods to B, goods costing 1 crore rupees. And A is now selling the bill to a factor. To a factor means A has sold the bill. The onus of collecting amount from the buyer will be on factor. For the factor, it is actionable claim. It's like asset recovery companies. My debts have been sold to asset recovery companies. So once I have factored my bill with the factor, so I am receiving money from a person who is not a buyer. Buyer will pay money to a person who is not a seller. What has happened, sir? When I am factoring my bill, I have sold my bill to a financial institution. I have sold my bill to a financial institution. Once I have sold my bill to a financial institution, the onus of collection of amount from the buyer is transferred from the seller to the financial institution. So my thing, seller part is settled. Seller has got the money from the financial institution against sale of his invoice. So seller has got money from the financial institution who is a factor. Buyer will pay money to the financial institution who is a factor but not a seller. So unique situation. Seller is getting money from a person who is not a buyer. Buyer is paying money to a person who is not a seller. So this provision will obviously not apply. This provision will obviously not apply because it is only seller and buyer. Suman, hello. Sumantroda. Phone lagao sir.
হ্যাঁ বলো।
হ্যাঁ সুমন্ত দা,
হ্যাঁ বলো বলো।
কোনো কোশ্চেন
দাঁড়াও
থাকলে
এক মিনিট
জিজ্ঞেস
একটু
করতে
আওয়াজটা
বলো না।
একটু দাঁড়াও, আওয়াজে প্রবলেম আছে, দাঁড়াও।
হ্যাঁ
সুমন্ত দা, if there is any
হ্যাঁ বলো বলো
question,
বলো।
if there is any question of the
একটু
participant,
দাঁড়াও হ্যাঁ একটু দাঁড়াও।
sure.
একটু আওয়াজটা একটু প্রবলেম হচ্ছে, দাঁড়াও।
তোমার আওয়াজ কম না
এবার
আমার
বলো,
আওয়াজ কম?
এবার বলো। হ্যাঁ
বলো সুমন্ত দা।
হ্যাঁ না তুমি কি বলছিলে, তোমার তোমার
আমি বলছি যদি কারো প্রশ্ন থাকে তাহলে
হ্যাঁ
জিজ্ঞেস করে নিক।
হ্যাঁ তাহলে আমি একটা কাজ করছি, এই সুমন তুমি সবাইকে আনমিউট করে দাও তো, এই হ্যাঁ হ্যালো সুমন।
হ্যাঁ বলো
সুমন
বলো।
সুমন
সুমন সবাইকে আনমিউট করো।
আনমিউট করো আগে।
হ্যাঁ বলো।
এবার
যদি
চালু হোক
কোনো
কোশ্চেন
কোয়েশ্চেন
আনসার
তো
সেশন।
থাকবেই। হ্যাঁ
না কেউ যদি কোশ্চেন করতে চায় তারা হাতটা তুলতে পারে, কারণ আমার এখান থেকে মিউট করতে পারি, আনমিউট করতে পারি না। তাদেরকে আনমিউট নিজেদের কি করে নিতে হবে, দিয়ে দে ক্যান আস্ক দ্য কোশ্চেনস।
গুড।
হ্যাঁ বলো কি কোয়েশ্চেন বলো।
এমনিতে কিছু কোশ্চেনস বোধহয় আছে চ্যাট বক্সে।
আচ্ছা চ্যাট বক্সে কোয়েশ্চেন আছে, আচ্ছা।
চ্যাট বক্সে কোশ্চেন আছে।
হ্যাঁ প্লিজ এক্সপ্লেন দ্য ইউডিন আপলোডিং ক্রাইটেরিয়া, এটা সুরজিৎ সেনগুপ্ত করেছিলেন।
আমি দেখছি কোথায় গো? ইউডিন আপলোডিং ক্রাইটেরিয়া।
হ্যাঁ
সুরজিৎ দা,
হ্যাঁ।
তোমার ইউডিন has to be uploaded within 7 days from date of uploading of tax audit report. Within 15 days means if you upload your tax audit report on 10th, then by 24th October your UDIN has to be uploaded maximum.
মনোজদা এখানে একটু প্রশ্ন করি।
বলো।
বলছি আমি যদি আগে যখন ট্যাক্স অডিটটা হার্ড কপি সাইন করছি তখন জেনারেট করে রাখি, এবং তারপরে কি কোনো ডেট রেস্ট্রিকশন আছে আপলোডেশনের জন্য? ওরা বলছে ট্যাক্স অডিটের সঙ্গে ইউডিনটা থাকতে হবে।
When you are signing a hard copy, means you are putting a date.
ডেট, হ্যাঁ সেই ডেটে আমি ইউডিন জেনারেট করি।
Once date is there, then you are getting that date plus 14 days maximum.
হ্যাঁ না, আমার কোশ্চেনটা ছিল যে অলরেডি আই হ্যাভ সাইন্ড এ অডিট ট্যাক্স অডিট রিপোর্ট and I have put the date and I have already generated the UDIN. Is there any time limit for uploadation of this tax audit report?
Within 15 days you have to upload.
The upload of tax audit?
Uploading of tax audit report. Why if you have not uploaded means you have not submitted.
Yes.
Suman, it has to be submitted on the website. Mere signing is useless.
তার মানে বেসিক্যালি ডেট অফ ফাইলিং মিন্স দ্য ডেট, মানে যেদিনকে ফাইল
date of filing means date of acceptance by assessee, mind you.
আচ্ছা,
suppose we upload and assessee does not accept, means it is useless.
Yeah,
got my point?
I got you.
Suppose you have uploaded but assessee has not accepted it, then it is whenever assessee will accept it, then only it will be treated as uploaded.
হ্যাঁ এবার মানুষদা ধরুন একটা মানুষদা, এবার কেউ একজন আমরা আপলোড করে দিলাম, ঠিক আছে, আমরা ইউডিন জেনারেট করে আপলোড করে দিলাম, এসএসসি এখনো ডিজিটাল সিগনেচার দিয়ে অ্যাপ্রুভ করেনি, যেহেতু টাইম আছে এসএসসি আরো 15 দিন বা 20 দিন পর ওটা দেখে অ্যাকসেপ্ট করলো, দিয়ে নিজের রিটার্নটা আপলোড করলো, বেসিক্যালি
ওদিন আপলোড ধরা হবে,
ধরা আপলোড হবে, কিন্তু আমাদের ইউডিন তো ভ্যালিড থাকবে, এটা নিয়ে
সেটা ভ্যালিড,
এটা নিয়ে তো কোনো প্রশ্ন ঠিক
একদম কোনো সমস্যা নেই। महेश कालोटिया जी, मैंने आपको आंसर कर दिया भैया।
When the sale to be occurred 1/10/20.
When sale to be, the date of sale is irrelevant. Payment receipt of amount is relevant. Date of raising invoice is irrelevant over here. Whether you have sold in 17-18 or 18-19 or 19-20 or 20-21, if you are receiving more than 50 lakhs in any financial year, then only you have to collect TCS on the amount exceeding 50 lakhs, and it will be for every year. Please remember, it will be considered every year. এটা কি বলছে Dipankar Roy? If turnover equal to less than 1 crore, net profit less than. Dipankar, here there is a problem. As per some authorities, your audit is not mandatory.
Dipankar, can you repeat the question because you have sent the question in the private chat box.
हेलो हेलो
Yeah.
हाँ मनोज जी, मेरा ये क्वेश्चन था कि कोई
Follow,
क्लाइंट का
follow.
अगर ये टर्नओवर लास्ट ईयर टर्नओवर लेस देन 1 करोड़ और उसने 8% 44 एडी में जाना नहीं चाहता है और लेकिन
He
वो
has never opted for 44 AD in the past also. Do you mean to say?
हाँ
If you had opted for 44 AD in the past, and
Okay.
now you do not want to opt for 44 AD, then situation will be different, Dipankar. বুঝতে পেরেছো
Okay.
আমি কি বলছি?
अर्लियर ईयर में वो अगर गया है तो वो नहीं
যদি
टैक्स
গত বছর কোনো একটা বছরে অপ্ট করেছো তাহলে তোমাকে 5+1 যদি অপ্ট আউট করো তাহলে 1+5 6 বছরের জন্য তোমাকে ট্যাক্স অডিট করাতে হবে, বুকস মেইনটেইন করতে হবে। এটা মাথায় রেখো।
ओके
বুঝেছো কি বললাম? ক্লিয়ার না?
एकदम एकदम
আরো বলো, আরো বলো। সুমান, there seems no question. বলো বাবা এবার।
No, there is no other questions. I think vote of thanks. Dipankar, can you give the vote of thanks? Montota?
হ্যাঁ, আর কি? চতুর্থী
तुम्हें दिए दाओ
দীপঙ্কর আসবেই না সামনে।
Study circle.
চতুর্থী না এখন।
Study circle. You are being always cooperative to us and always a man whenever we required. Manojda is always with us. So many thanks and very good deliberation on your part. You are your very good present PPT, and I think you will be sharing us with the PPT after this program that we can mail to the participant of this program. Thank you, Manojda, on behalf of Study Circle and from our end. Thank you, Manojda.
Okay,
Thanks
thank
also all the participants who has also. Thank you.
Thank you.
थैंक यू
So may I end the